You know that feeling, right? That knot that forms in your stomach when you just don't know what's coming next. Maybe at work, in a relationship, or just with the world in general. Facing the unknown, it can be one of the most stressful things we go through. So today, we're going to dig into the architecture of resilience to really understand why some people seem to handle all that uncertainty so much better than others.
Okay, so why is that? Why is not knowing so hard? Well, our brains are basically prediction machines. Seriously, they're wired to figure out what's going to happen next so we can prepare, protect ourselves, and just feel like we're in control. So when you take that away, it's totally natural to feel a wave of anxiety. But what if there was another way to look at it?
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It turns out that researchers have found there's this specific group of people who don't just put up with uncertainty, they actually thrive in it. And the secret to how they stay so stable? It's surprisingly simple. It's not magic, and it's definitely not something they were just born with.
And that is probably the most important thing to get right from the start. This ability to handle the unknown, it's not some rare superpower that only a few people have. Nope. It is a learnable, practical strategy that literally anyone can start using. So, let's get into the blueprint.
The foundation for this entire strategy, the real cornerstone of it all, starts with a powerful change in your mindset. It's called the acceptance shift. So let's be super clear about what we mean by acceptance here. This is not about passive resignation, just giving up. It is an active, strategic decision. It's you choosing to stop pouring your valuable mental and emotional energy into a fight you can't possibly win, the fight against what you just can't control or predict.
And just look at the difference it makes. On one side, when you're fighting uncertainty, you get constant worry, this desperate need for immediate answers, and all of that just wastes your mental energy. But on the other side, when you accept it, you get patience, you acknowledge a lack of control, and you can serve all that precious energy for things you can actually influence. You're shifting from anxious resistance to calm acknowledgement.
So what it all boils down to is this. The acceptance shift is about giving yourself permission to not have all the answers right this second. It's consciously letting go of that frantic, desperate need for everything to make sense immediately.
Okay, so you've made that mental shift. What's next? What do you actually do? Well, let's move on to the second part of the secret, which builds right on top of that foundation, the control filter.
This is where the whole strategy becomes so powerful. See, acceptance isn't the finish line, it's the starting block. Once you stop wasting all that energy fighting the uncontrollable, you suddenly have a surplus of it that you can redirect in a much, much more productive way.
And the process itself is a simple three-step filter. It's pretty straightforward. First, you just acknowledge a situation for what it is, no judgment. Second, you draw a mental line in the sand, separating what is completely out of your hands from what isn't. And third, and this is the absolute key, you focus all of your attention, your actions, and your energy exclusively on your side of that line.
Now, this whole two-part strategy, acceptance and filtering, it sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work? Well, let's take a look at the science, which gives us some pretty compelling proof that this practice is the real deal.
The research here is really clear. There is a direct, measurable connection between a person's ability to tolerate uncertainty, to just be okay with not knowing, and their overall emotional well-being. This isn't just a nice idea, it's a concept that's been validated by psychological studies.
And this chart just makes that relationship crystal clear. It's so simple, right? The higher your tolerance for uncertainty, boom, the lower your reported levels of anxiety. And of course, the opposite is true. The less you can stand not knowing, the more anxiety you're probably going to feel. It's just a powerful visual of how this works.
And a key quote from the source material really sums it up perfectly. It's not just about feeling less anxious in the moment. It's about building genuine, long-term emotional stability. This strategy helps you create a solid foundation for yourself, even when it feels like the ground is shaking beneath you. So, how do we take all of this and actually apply it in our own lives? This is all about you constructing your own personal architecture of resilience, using these principles as your blueprint.
It really just boils down to these two core ideas. First, make the acceptance shift. Stop the pointless fight against things you can't change. And second, apply the control filter. Take all that energy you saved and channel it directly into the things you can actually do something about.
And it's so important to remember, this isn't a switch you just flip once and you're done. It's a practice, it's a muscle you have to develop. Every single time you face uncertainty and you use this strategy, you are adding another brick to your own architecture of resilience, building it stronger and stronger over time.
So I want to leave you with this question. Right now, in the middle of whatever uncertainty you might be facing, big or small, just ask yourself this. What is one thing, Just one tiny thing that you can control at this very moment. Maybe it's your breath, your next small action, or maybe just your perspective. That's it. That's where you start.